From deep inside the Truth in Broadcasting Studio, located in Truckin City headquarters, where opinions fly faster than Maverick's F-18 and myths fold like a house of cards. Get ready for the most unique live show, challenging you to believe what you see and learn something new every day. Featuring the El-Rush-Bo of Truckin News, Mr. Attitude himself, your host, Deviator.
Good morning, folks. Good morning and good day. Don't know if you're noticing it, but there are some extreme issues with this internet connection. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's my equipment. I don't know, but not one show can go off without there being some sort of technical hiccup. I guess that's part of running a live show. You got to deal with it, folks. We're here today talking about mentors. I figured I'd run show number 2 and run it alongside what was supposed to be a decent show last week and continue our war on Main Street Mafia. There's so much out there that's being shown to everyone on getting into trucking, getting started, getting everything ready. If you want to start a business, now's the time. We're short trucks. It's 80,000 short. Need so much hogwash out there that there's just no time to understand and absorb what's right and what's not. So it's my dedicated journey to be with you week after week after week, going through and sifting through all of the lies, all of the propaganda, and making it make sense to you. That's what the mission of this trucking channel is all about. I have guests with me this morning to talk about mentors in trucking. I have one trying to get set up. He just sent me the message. So in the meantime, let's introduce our first guest who'd be willing to talk on the topic. He's got 23 years of experience himself in trucking. You all know him and love him. And even from the depths of despair and health, he's with us today and joining us here on Truckin City Media Live. Good morning to you, Frank. How are you feeling?
Good morning to you, Deviator.
Yeah, how are you feeling today, buddy?
A lot better since they did the surgery yesterday on me. I had 100% blockage in one of my arteries, and they went in and put a stent in and cleared that up. So I'm feeling a lot better than I was.
All right. Well, we want to give you a personal welcome. Make Trump and grumpy again. That's my my mantra for you. And we've got another fella joining us too today. He's also going to enjoy the conversation about mentoring. I want to welcome in a guy who's famous for the expression "truckers are people too." You got a hell of an echo going on in the background, buddy.
I do?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. It was fine until I brought you in.
All right, throw me backstage. I'm going to put my headset on.
Anyway, so yeah, today's going to be a mentor day, because like I said, last week's conversation, we tried to engage a number of people and have everybody show up. Only one person showed up. So, I tried. You were obviously having the difficulties you were having. John was on and he couldn't get involved. So I was kind of on my own, but hey, that's life, It's a show is a show, so it is what it is.
Show must go on.
Exactly. But one of the things I thought I'd talk on last week and tried, talking about was simply, one of the clips, and I don't have it to play it, but in describing the clip, a fella down in Griffin, Georgia, It's on last week's live. If you want to go watch the replay, by all means, go ahead. A fella down in Griffin, Georgia, lives next to an industrial park. And this fella doesn't even drive truck, but he constantly deals with truck drivers in and around the neighborhood that he lives in. And he's constantly talking with a fellow trucker down the road because two of them are always having to get in trucks and do what I pictured last week, which was they had to back this fella down a 2.5 mile long run and do it. Let me see if I can get back to bringing John back and see if he's got that echo problem taken care of. Sounds like you're good. I don't hear the echo, but I also don't hear you. So you got to fix your audio. Now I can. Now I can.
Oh, you can?
Now I can hear you. You're good.
That's a little better.
How are you today, John? There you go. Now I got you. I don't know what you're doing. You're cutting in and out. Now you're there. Yeah. All right. You're good now. Anyway, as I was explaining to Frank a minute ago, we had this fella, apparently he didn't speak very good English, wound up getting struck to a dead end, slap at the end of a dead end. And this fella and another truck driver wound up having to back them all the way down this long dead end road, which clearly had signs all over the place. Road closed, dead end, do not travel, or, no rigs or something. And they wound up backing him all the way down this 2.5 mile road, get him turned around, and actually drove him to the industrial park entrance where he should be. So when I saw that video clip, I thought about it and how many people honestly would even take the time to do something like that. This one fella filming it didn't even have an affiliation or a CDL, but he had his buddy with him, and the buddy's the one that did the backing of the rig. But it brought to mind a number of questions I thought would be perfect for discussion. And it's how many people actually take the time to actually show people, hey, this is what you do. That doesn't happen very much in today's trucking at all. I mean, it's just something that we don't see much of.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think, John?
Can I throw you a curveball on this one?
Sure.
You don't have to be a new guy to do something like that. About a week ago, I was at an airport in Kentucky, and stupid me didn't do all the research I normally do. I didn't do the street view. I just did Google Earth. And so I was following what it said because it looked right from what I had seen the night before. And I ended up turning up a road that didn't have a sign on the end of the road, but as soon as you turned it down the road a ways, there's a sign that says, airport traffic only, do not trespass, blah, blah, blah. Well, like I said, I'm not a rookie, but even if you don't do your pre-trip properly, you can run into those situations even as an experienced guy. But
yes.
I literally had to call airport security, ask them to back me out. But when they got there, they said, rather than back you out, we can open the gate in front of you and take you across the runways by the planes over to where you're going to deliver, which I got to mention was kind of the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. But it just goes to show you that you don't have to be a rookie to make a mistake like that.
Even with the best plan in place, you can run into mistakes. And I've even had that happen myself, because typically when it comes to setting up my route from shipper to receiver, I'm always looking at a certain hierarchy of roads that I'll travel. But even so, on one end or the other, you have to get onto arteries, state routes, county roads, things like that every so often. And it's even almost impossible not to make a mistake once in a while. So, what you ran into the other day, John, perfectly understandable. I've even run into that a couple of times.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah, I was going to say, in fact, you may even know about this, John. If you've been through northern Kentucky, there's a section of, I think it's 45 going through northern Kentucky. It's a state route. And if you're not careful, there's a 12.6 bridge that you can get with all common GPSs. They do it all the time. They turn you right through a town, and it takes you right under this 12.6 bridge. But if you're not looking, you've got to travel through town and go, somewhere out of your way to avoid that bridge. But the GPS will steer you right into it. I don't know if you've ever been in that city I'm talking about, but
my
I don't think so.
my GPS is pretty good about keeping me away from that stuff, but I pay a good service for it. I pay like $65 for a year of it. So
yeah. So talking about something like Trucker Path or something like that.
Similar, yes. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the name of it, but I've been using it. That's a smart truck route or something like that.
Okay,
that's what it's called.
Right.
And I've been using it for about 6 years now, almost.
Oh wow!
Okay. And if I come up on something that's not right, I can immediately send that information to them, and their mapping department is right on top of it and looking at it and getting it squared away and it's changed.
Yeah. All right. Well, the first thing I want to talk about basically is probably what we're on today's topic, and that's mentors. And that's just basically talking about what mentors do. I may be big on YouTube. I may be starting on YouTube, but the one thing I am not is lacking information. Okay? So I am forever looking at information and looking for ways to improve. And I'm trying to get this set out so I can do everybody all at the same time. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to the software, so bear with me, folks. The role mentors play and on-job training. Now, let's not confuse the two, okay? There's a difference between a trainer and a mentor, okay? A trainer is someone that basically just sets up how do you do the job, okay? And when you're shown, you go to trucking school, that kind of thing. When you go to trucking school, you're given the basics. You go in, you get a skills test, you pass that skills test, then you're taken out to a parking lot, you're given a truck, and you're said, do A, B, C. Normally, most trainers give you the same spiel and runaround, and they all tell you how to do the basic job. That's it. There's nothing more to it. In terms of actually getting up and running that show and actually doing the job, that's a lot different. That's humongously different. And it varies because when you get done with your CDL school, you're then sent to a company, whatever company decides to hire you. In today's standards anyway. Then you're given a trainer who would probably later become a mentor. So let's delineate the difference. The person that trains you is not capable of showing you a lot of the ins and outs, but the person that mentors you will make or break you. All right. And for what it's worth, Frank, I know you spoke a lot about during our first interview about your experience with, remind me, I think it was, you said Vote School or something. I forget the name of the school.
Central Votech.
Central Votech, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you, I mean, not to talk bad or good about a particular school, but what do you think about the way they trained you to get your CDL?
Believe it or not, I actually recommend them only because the factor of it is they've got really decent courses that you can run on that's paved. They believe in no driver left behind, basically, just like in schools do. So they want to work with you and try to make sure you succeed and try to get you to pass. So they're going to go way out of their way to try to get you to understand or learn how to do something as much as they possibly can. Yeah. Their courses, you can look them up online. I've actually got them tagged in my Facebook group, so you can look on there and see their course.
Right.
So, I mean, they do accept people from out of state. So, I mean, you just have to get approved. A lot of companies will pay for you to go to school there, and then they just work it out for you.
Right.
But I mean, it's really a good, highly recommended school. I've been there twice. Once my original time when I first began. Then I left Class A for a little while. I was driving Class B and stuff. So because I did that, I had to go back and do what they call a refresher, basically. So I had to go back and do a whole new course for a whole month.
Interesting.
And
Not to cut you off, but an interesting question. Do you remember the person that ran the CDL's training course you took in Central Votech?
you know, the first one that I was there when I first went there was Mr. Brown, which
Okay.
he retired since then. I'm not sure who's there now,
Yeah.
but or no, Mr. Brown was the second guy that was there. Yes, first guy
Okay.
was oh, well, he's long since passed away, but he was a highway patrol for years, plus a truck driver.
Right.
And so I mean he ran it, and had a lot of experience with a lot of that, and made sure that all his students will succeed one way or the other.
Right.
And but basically boiling that down to it is, I mean, if you're struggling, they're going to be there right there one on one trying to help you. I mean, they don't just look at you and like, okay, you're a failure, I'm not going to help you. No, this school wants you to pass. They want you to do it. So they're going to do all they can, whether it means staying afterwards to work with you. They will do that. And I've seen that many times when I was there. And because I already had experience when I went and done my refresh course, they kept sticking everybody with me because I already had experience. Or like, and everybody wanted to team up with me because I already had experience. And I'm like, why do you want to be with me? I'm here to do the same thing you're doing. I'm having to relearn all this. They said, you already know it. You just have to do it because it's legalities. I'm like, okay, makes sense to me. Because even the teachers wondered why I was there.
What about you, John? Do you remember the guy, the first instructor that you ever worked with and learned how to drive truck?
No. I have a unique story. So when I first went to training, I don't remember the guy's name. I went to a company to be trained. I was in there for like 2 weeks. Then my mother-in-law passed, so I went home for 2 weeks and came back for the last 2 weeks. Passed my test. Went to a company. I was trained for about a week. Ended up switching to a different company because that company and I weren't seeing eye to eye, we'll say. But the new company, they literally put me out on a road where I drove team for a week and then gave me keys. So I essentially started driving after I'd say about a week of actual on the road training. But so I would say my best mentor was myself and any old trucker I could find in a truck stop that was willing to give me a nugget of kindness, because that's how I was taught, between YouTube and nuggets of kindness, which is part of one of the things I was hoping I could bring up in this conversation, that the older guys, a lot of guys wouldn't help me as much as I thought they should have or would have normally. They would just put me down and call me a steering wheel holder. This is years ago, but I'm just saying. But once in a while, I'd meet that guy that would teach me this one nugget, and that nugget has gotten me so far. And if you can drop a nugget that can literally change their trucking career, do it. Help them out. And if you're a new guy, don't be so proud not to take that advice.
Oh yeah. Well, that brings me up to the next question I had in mind for our topic today, and how is it to be both a trainer and mentor? Because now we understand what the difference is between the two. You can train all day long, but that don't mean you know anything at all about the trucking industry. And I think a lot of people get that confused, and they think, well, because I went to school and because I know how to do the basic job, I don't need any more. I don't need to know anymore. Leave me alone. Everybody has this, like you say, John, it's all or nothing attitude. And a lot of people are not willing to stop, unless we're from, old days and, kind of our era in terms, and I don't consider us, all that either, but, there are guys older than us that are, I guess you could say kind of fed up trying to show all these new guys. But I think part of that problem is the fact that our market is just so flooded with rookies. Honestly, it really does. I think, in a sense, if I can take your role here for a moment, John, it really does somewhat become a self-defeating prophecy, where you can show everybody that you run into all day long all the good tips, tricks, and trades, but then you get that, do I really need it kind of attitude from the young generation. So, I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate like you commonly do. But, it's, to me, that's what seems to happen. And I myself don't have a problem showing people anything, whether you would decide to absorb it, that's a different entirely, so, I mean, I love the point, but, as younger people, you got to be more or less willing to take good advice, you know?
Can I do a
And
story real quick?
sure, by all means.
All right. About 2 years ago, I was out somewhere out in the Midwest, I think Montana,
Hmm.
but there was a guy. It was probably about 6:30 at night, and he was trying to park. He had a big long nose Pete.
Hmm.
He saw I think it was a Reaper actually, but he pulled up to park and couldn't get it lined up right. Another truck came around from the fuel island, got behind him, got so he couldn't turn, got really annoyed. The guy hits his horn. The guy gets nervous. He drives around the block again. Lets that guy through. Comes back around to get his spot. It's lined up, but he's off a little bit. About that time, another guy comes off the fuel island, comes around, hitting his horn. Guy gets nervous, pulls out, and goes back around. The third time around, I only help when I feel like it's necessary. At that point, I was annoyed. So I walked up to his truck when he pulled up to back up, and I said, I can help you get lined up, but you need to ignore these guys that are honking at you. I know they're in a hurry, but you need to get parked before your clock goes out. And so you just need to take your time, ignore them, and get into the spot. So what do you need? Do you know how to do that? I'm happy to help you. He knew how to do it. He was just feeling rushed from these other guys. So
Mm-hmm.
after I had talked to him for a minute, and I said, literally, just ignore them.
Kind
Ignore
of
them.
intimidated. Yeah, I was kind of intimidated because, I mean, it's real easy when you're in a situation like you described to be that one odd guy trying to get it done. You almost feel like you got pressure on you,
Yeah,
and
peer pressure type thing.
yeah, pretty much, and you've got to
Oh,
get
it
it
is
done. And
pressure.
yeah,
100%.
A, you've got the clock. B, you've got the other people around you looking at you, being that quote rookie that you're obviously looking like. I've even had moments where I'm sitting there struggling, trying to do a maneuver. I've been doing this already almost 13 years. I have my moments where I'll be making moves, and I'm like, what does everybody think? God, do they think I'm a freaking rookie? I
Yeah.
mean, it happens to all of us. It really does.
Well, in
You
that
know.
scenario, you
Hmm.
have you have an older guy that's impatient, that's making another guy, I won't call him a rookie, but he was younger, and he
Yeah.
was having a lot of trouble. And the pressure, the other guy hitting his horn in the middle of a truck stop was a
Hmm.
lot of pressure on him, which was making him make errors. And
Right.
so that would be a great example for me would
Hmm.
be where an older guy, look, this is your opportunity. You could
Right.
have just waited patiently, and if he couldn't do it, jump out of your truck and say, hey,
Yep.
angle this way, try this, do this, you know. But no, that wasn't what they did. Instead, they're like,
Yeah.
and then we're not about City Horn, we're talking about the big guy.
Yeah.
So,
Actual air horn.
yeah,
Let's
so
take a minute and let people know what's going on. We're talking about mentors in trucking. We're talking about training, the difference between mentors and trainers. If you've got something watching this program right now that you'd like to add to the show and or to the comments, please put them in the comments below. Or you can call our studio line at 860-785-3547, 860-785-3547. We are the only live show on trucking taking calls. So let's continue the conversation. I'm talking with John, driving with John, and I'm talking with Frank at Grumpy Old Truckers. And we're talking about how to basically be a mentor or a trainer. And if you're joining us on That's Truckin's YouTube channel, please go down below, hit like on this live broadcast, become a subscriber if you haven't already. Also, take a moment, go to John's YouTube channel and it's Driving with John, either on his Facebook or his YouTube. Become a member and start looking at his. I mean, he's got some funny videos, pretty much even about stuff we're talking about right now. Very entertaining and very, very well put together, I think.
Don't forget, I have a YouTube set up. I just haven't put any material up yet.
Oh man,
you
you
can
don't
still
give me
subscribe
half a
though.
chance to get there. I was just about to start to talk about that. Talk about grumpy old trucker right there. I mean, right there. I mean, classic. Yeah, grumpy old trucker. Certainly become a member of his Facebook group and certainly entertain yourself. We've got over almost 110,000 members on the Facebook group as of right now.
You better check again. We got almost 111,000.
Okay. Well, I've been kind of busy.
I know. But yes,
Anyway.
I've got a YouTube set up, but just I haven't got any material up yet. But you can still subscribe. That way, when stuff comes up, hey, you can watch it.
God bless you. Yeah, and one of these days we'll feature something up about that. So anyway, so yeah, if you would be kind enough to go down below and hit the like and subscribe on this broadcast and help support our mission to make trucking great again, we would certainly be grateful to you on that. Let's continue the conversation on mentors and trainers. So what time frame, and this is something you and I, John, we've butted heads on. And I know somebody else had a different opinion and they're not with us today, but let's do with what we got. What experience should someone have in time or mileage to be considered? Now, I'm going to use this not just for trainers, but also mentors as well, because again, we've established there's a difference. But I think it's a valuable conversation because I think a lot of the mega carriers are making huge mistakes. And that is, these mega carriers are taking people fresh out of being hired and immediately right up there, and they're putting them in trucks to train others with no experience. I've actually seen it happen. 6 weeks on the job, you're new, you're doing it, and all of a sudden you're approached by your fleet manager and said, I need you to train people. And for that, I'll pay you an extra 10 cents a mile or whatever the freaking ghostly figure is. It's really sickening, but they do it. It's commonplace, and it's scary because we've got this guy that's got 6 weeks worth of experience showing this guy that's only been in the truck 6 hours how to do a job that involves a heck of a lot more than 6 weeks worth of experience. That I think is ridiculous, and that's how accidents happen. I have been of the mindset that in this business, you need to have, in my opinion, at least 1 million miles under your belt. That is my opinion. Now, I know that cuts a lot of people out, and I know it's probably going to set wrong with some people, but yeah, it's definitely something that I think would, if we put those standards into place anyway, I think it would make an awful big difference in how people are trained and how safe this entire industry is. What do you think, John?
1 million miles. Whew. All right. Well, I would
Almost
say
10 years.
that you would actually have trouble finding enough safe driving million milers. I mean, 1 million safe miles or 1 million miles. There's a difference.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Yeah, 1 million safe miles. I think that's a very accurate point to bring up.
Yeah, I would say that it wouldn't be, in my mind, it wouldn't have to be 1 million miles. I wouldn't hand the keys to anybody who's been driving too short a time and tell them to train. I think a number in my head that I can't really get out is if you've been driving about 5 years and you're accident free and you've proven to be mature enough to understand about your job and how to do it, I think training at that point is fine. Maybe, with some oversight, obviously, but definitely some training. Like
Yeah, I
me
know some of these
personally,
larger.
I've been driving.
I know some of these larger companies do offer a what I guess they call it a key that they double check the trainer to make sure that so it's not like they're just plucking new people out. They have checks and balances. So I'm not going to, and that's why I'm not naming names, but they do that. But even that has a flaw to it. I mean, because even though you have checks and balances in place, you still have room for mistakes. And that's why I think, people that have been in trucking less than a year, you don't need to be showing people how to do the job. You don't need to be training people, So
well, the other problem,
I can concede to your estimation. In 5 years, okay, I can concede, because at that point you've got about 500,000 miles. I still have some issues with the experience on that, but you're at least not. If by that time you're at least not hitting everything that's stationary, you know, you know. So, and your point you made is a good one. I mean, safe miles is a big difference too.
Yeah.
What do you think, Frank? You haven't chimed in on this, so what are your thoughts?
Basically, I mean, I've got over 23 years experience, and it's not all been Class A. But I look at it as a factor of it is one thing is a year's time and then go and try to train somebody. No, I don't care how safe a record that person has. I just don't see it happening because they're still learning.
Yep.
I would honestly agree that a person needs to have at least 5 years OTR driving mountain ranges, flat ground, and that way they can have the experience to be able to help their trainee. I mean, I've done training. I did train one person before the COVID hit, and that gentleman, I won't say his name because I don't want to seclude him right now, but he is or has been an owner operator. He was doing well. He's, as far as I know, has been accident free. I haven't heard him tell me anything about having any accidents or anything. And he already had about 6 months experience before he came to where I had to take over and train him. But I went through an extensive 2-day course through this company that I was with to make sure that I could, handle the training, learned how all the paperwork worked. Also needed to, go through the Smith system, which is a great deal too. Smith system does help.
Right.
And I honestly believe even four-wheelers should all take that course before they get a driver's license.
I agree. I've done the Smith system. I 100% agree.
I've done it so many times I could do it blindfolded, to be honest with you. And that's sad. But yeah, I agree. I'd say nobody should be training anybody in a big truck unless they've got at least 5 years of over the road driving through mountains and stuff experience. And I know that seems like a less amount. Some people may think, oh, it's not enough. Or some people might think, well, that's too much time. No, by 5 years, you've pretty much gotten to know, what your ranges are. You know how to shift. You know how to, I mean, you're not just a window licker anymore. Basically, as another person puts it, or a steering wheel holder.
Window licker. Licker. That's a new one. I have not heard that one.
I have. There's a guy I follow that tells people that all the time.
Really?
But yeah, I'll share that with you after the show.
What now? I mean, again, we talked about training. What about mentors now? If you're actually more or less, I mean, I know it's different. I mean, the concept of a mentor from a trainer.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of actually taking someone under your wing and actually being able to show them the do's and don'ts and how to get things done, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think, first of all, the industry needs more of them? Do you think it would not hurt for more people to step out and say, let me show you, and let's take some of these bad guys off the road, or help out some of these people that are having problems?
I firmly agree on that. It would help quite a bit if we could get a lot of these people that are been in a truck for, like me, as long as I have, or even like yourself, Deviator. It's something that it would be great to offer our assistance and help if we see them struggling. Because I mean, years ago, I mean, I've talked to drivers that, well, there's still a lot of them still driving, and that they just basically, here's the keys, go start it and learn how to drive it your damn self, kind of thing, and that makes it kind of hard. the hard school knocks.
I agree with all of you. Job's important and dangerous. Thanks for getting out there and daily standing on business. Happy Saturday. Thanks for contributing to our show there, Empress. Like the name. I really like the name. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think in terms of being able to show people, first of all, my contribution to the industry is this channel. I believe a lot can be learned just by watching YouTube videos. Now, I'm not saying everybody stop mentoring and strictly go to YouTube. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, I think if more people actually stepped out and took the time, that goes with experience anyway, not just every Tom, Dick, and Harry. But if you actually took the time to step out and say, hey, look, let me give you some advice. In fact, as we speak, I've got a fella that's actually doing that very thing. And it's not my boss, it's somebody else, but he's actually taking the time to take me under his wing, and he's actually showing me sides of the trucking business I've never seen before. And I'll be happy to report back to you some of the results in the coming months. I'm looking forward to it. The guy's got an attitude just like me and has a versatile amount of experience, probably far, far beyond mine, but I'm very interested to work with him.
And
what about you, John? What are your thoughts on mentors as opposed to trainers?
I think mentors, excuse me. I think mentors are more of a maturity level than they are. I mean, you obviously know how to drive and know how to do certain things, but to be a mentor or to be mentored both shows a level of maturity that you have to be teachable or to be able to teach. Not as a trainer, but as a mentor, like you're saying, like to be on call. Like, let's be honest. I have a select few of truckers. If I have a question, I can call them anytime and they'll answer, and they'll tell me the answer that I need at that moment.
Yeah.
And I have a wide spectrum of those. It's a network, but they're all, in one way or another, they're all mentoring me because they're teaching me something I don't know. But I think that I always go out of my way to pick older, more mature. And there's not many older than me. I'm kind of old, but older, more mature people, because they've been in the industry a long time. They understand, and they're willing to give you knowledge. If they're not willing to give you knowledge, then don't pick them as a mentor because they're not going to help you at all. But even when you're in the job for many, many, many years, you're still going to have the same scenario where you have mentors and you're mentoring others. It's just the reality of the business, and it's good that way. We're all growing, which is the purpose.
Well,
amen to that.
I mean, come to the factor of it is, I'm not old, and you and I are pretty close in the same age group. But if you needed my help, I'm willing to give you my 2 cents.
It's very true. It's very true. I think we all feel that way, which is a good thing. Oh, that's a weird layout. I hate that. I wanted to hit that one.
There we go.
I'm still trying to get used to this stuff. I'm telling you, it's trouble. One of these days, I'm gonna have a perfect show.
This way, I can go down and I can grab John on the head, and you grab me on the head.
There you go.
There we go.
I'll move you back. There you go.
That's no fun. Now John has both of them.
Yeah, right. He can hit both of us.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So the last question I've got basically on this, and then we're going to free for all for the rest of the show. How can we change the standards for training and or mentorship? I look at that and I ask the question mainly because of what I first posed when we first started talking about this. And that is, I think personally, the industry is plagued with far too many people trying to do a job they're not qualified to do. Okay. It's bad enough you put people in the position of actually driving an 80,000 pound missile, I like to call it, and you do it with the bare minimum of experience. Now, they've talked about these ELT training courses that are now, federally required. But the one thing they never did was qualify a person's need for experience. And they never qualified the minimum hours necessary to be considered eligible and, to be able to get that CDL from, whatever state you're in. And it varies depending. I mean, in the state of New York, back in 2012, when I did my CDL permit, I was required to get 75 hours of classroom training, 75 hours worth of on the road training, meaning behind the wheel in the seat. And that equaled 150 hours. Now, I know states are all different. At least back then they were. Today they may all be uniform. I don't know. But 150 hours, when you think about it, is not a whole lot of time. You know, there's really a lot that needs to go into learning how to do the job. And, you know, I think personally, I think people need to be exposed to the job and be exposed to the multitude of situations you could be in for a lot longer than 150 hours. So let's attack it from there. What do you think in terms of minimum standards should we be looking at in terms of new guys training today? What are your thoughts, John? Do you think 150 hours is too much or not enough?
Well, I'll answer that. Just give me 1 second. So in today's world, when you go to become a trucker, you go to a school for usually about a month. You get so many hours to just get your CDL. Then you go to a more likely a mega carrier because they're the ones that have the insurance that can handle the new guys.
They can financially support you.
Correct. You usually get a week, possibly 2 tops in the truck experience, and then you're out on the road with your own keys. No one agrees with me. Well, I've had people agree with me, but older school guys and company owners don't agree with me. But I think at that point, once they have their CDL and they start with a company, it's the company's responsibility to keep them in training as long as it takes to have them become a safe driver.
You know why?
And be willing to get rid of them if they can't.
What you say is true, and simply only the fact that you've got to get a return on your investment. These mega carriers, when they take and pluck people out of these training schools, already have thousands invested in you. Okay? Take me, for example. When I trained, I spent myself $7,600 on my training school. Okay? That was the course and living expenses and everything all in. Because I went from, I lived in Newburgh, New York, and I had to commute all the way to Binghamton, New York. That was clearly across the state. So I had to get motel rooms, stay there, and do all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot involved. The company that hired me out of school, they also had a lot involved. So the return on investment was probably not as high as mine, you know, because I invested thousands, but they also invest the same thing because they got to take you out of school, get you housed, get you in a truck, get you out there with trainer, you know, so they're paying trainer, they're paying you. So there's a return on investment expected. The company that hired me did not pay my education. I paid for that. Okay. But classically with some of the major carriers, they pay for it. So they need to get a return on their investment. So, you know, in terms of being able to let you go, I don't see the sense in that. It's stupid because they're losing money, not only once, but twice. You know, so upping the training standards, I think, is important because if you're going to be a company and a mega carrier, especially, you're already getting hosed just by the fact that you've got a vacant truck. You know, let's not make the situation worse. Lord knows we got the media out there talking left, right, and sideways and about lead shortage. Don't get me started on that. But let's not make the situation worse by having that vacant truck be sitting there because some dummy can't learn how to do the job.
Yeah.
You know,
I would rather have a vacant truck sitting there than have a guy that doesn't know how to drive it out on the road.
I agree with you, John.
There you go. There you go.
Well, to add my 2 cents on this is there again, for one, instead of all these little companies, like, we'll just put it out there, Swift has their own schooling. Okay, that's nice and all. It saves them a little bit of money. But I feel that the companies themselves should not have their own training facilities. They should go to a third party and be trained, so that has nothing to do with that company, due to the factor that they will learn more and they'll have more of a chance to know what's going on without knowing about the company they're going to work at directly. Mm-hmm. My school that I went to, and like I said, I've been there twice. You know, first time back in 2001, whenever I got my CDL, and then second time was when I did a refresh. Well, it was 1 month course, 2 weeks as a rule, week and a half, 2 weeks inside book training, learning things and all that. Then we went out and did course training for about a week, and then 1 week we'd go out and do out on the highway, out on the free road, and all that. And you know, then after I left there and went to a mega carrier, which one of them is no longer in business, which was Arrow when I first began. Um, Usually, as a rule, I was out. I think I was out with them for going on close to about a month and a half of OTR with them, and part of that was because I wound up getting hurt, not on company time, but when I was staying in a motel. Long story short, the motel was junk, and I slipped in the bathtub, got sent home on a bus because of that, because I wasn't eligible to drive until I got seen by a doctor. So then when I got back and released, I went back and finished my training. So altogether, it was probably about 6 weeks worth of over the road training there. Same concept with when I came out the second time and went to work for CFI. They sent me out and I had to be out for so many miles. And I was considered inexperienced, even though I had experience, because I hadn't driven Class A in a while. So that's how they categorized me. Even though I had the experience and all that, because my trainer was like, he's like, this is no lie. I'm not making this up. He says, man, he said, the only thing I really need to teach you is the Qualcomm system and the paperwork. He said, you drive beautifully. He said, it looks like you've been driving for 40 years. I'm like, now how you're fooling me? You're pulling my leg. He said, no. He said, you're very professional. You're careful. You take your time and pay attention. He's like, and I don't have to yell at you and scream at you or nothing like that. He's like, I don't even know why they sent you out like this. He said, they should just give you a truck and said, go. I said, well, it's not my choice. So, I mean, it's the factor of it is, if the company's willing to give you the time to learn, even though I was already experienced, it's the factor that some of these have standards. And I think it was like almost 7,000 or 8,000 miles I had to get before I was allowed to get my own truck. Well, my trainer, after he seen that I was doing so good, and the funny part is we were running still on team because his truck was set up as a team. So we were running team loads and doing it solo and still making deadline. Yeah, that's a tough one. And it took him almost 2 weeks to figure out what was going on, why we were being rushed so much. And he finally talked to his dispatcher, DM, and found out his truck was still set up as a team. So, I mean, me running solo and running team load as a solo, that's quite hard. Trust me. I was being pushed for time, but we got it there and we did well. And like I said, time is one thing. Most of these new drivers, especially, I hate to say it, but a lot of these foreigners, they really need to go to a reputable school and learn and go out with a trainer that's been there for a while. That's part of the problem is a lot of them just, they send them in there, they teach them a little bit, just enough to get them going. They throw them the keys. They say, there's the truck, go. And they have no clue what they're doing. And that's what's wrong with our industry.
And that's basically what caused me to actually bring the topic up. I mean, changing standards. I mean, that's one we could probably make an entire video on, just talking about, the standards for English versus other languages.
Yep.
I mean, I've seen quite a few news stories recently, so we could spend an entire show talking about that.
Right.
My thing though is just basically that, the standards for the industry. Let's bounce it around like this, and let's talk about what's most memorable when you were trained. So, John, I don't think we talked much about your driving experience or your training experience other than the story you shared earlier. But I'd be interested to know if you got anything in your mind as a memorable experience that you had when you were training. Something stand out for you? I would say good. I mean, let's look at both sides of it, good and bad.
Well,
I mean, if you've got both.
Let's be completely honest. The way I was trained, there wasn't much good. I mean, I went to a company training school, which I know Frank said he's not big behind. It was actually a really good school. I'm not going to lie. That was the best part for me. Then I went to work for two different trainers for a total of about 2 weeks. One trainer I worked team with, which meant he was sleeping while I was driving and vice versa, which I learned absolutely nothing.
Mm.
And then the other trainer, for 2 or 3 days didn't let me drive, which I get and I don't fully understand. But the last couple days before I moved on, he was pretty much playing on his phone the entire time I was driving, not really paying attention at all. So, so my training experience is not a good one. But what I would tell people is, if you're old enough and mature enough, not even an age thing, if you're mature enough to understand how important and how dangerous your job possibly can be, then you can take it on yourself to go on YouTube, to do the research, to ask questions, to find truckers that are willing to talk to you, and make sure that you are a safe driver. And matter of fact, make that your emphasis of your job. That's what I've done. That's how I've become. I mean, zero accidents, zero incidents, zero. I mean, not zero accidents that are my fault. I've been involved in 3, and all 3, none of them had any blame on me. Which, by the way, one was just last week. So.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't going to mention that because there's certain legal issues with that, but that's fine.
No legal issues here.
Well, again, I don't mention it. It's up to you because you're the person involved in that one. So, I figured it would be a legal issue with your company being mentioned or at least the events taking place.
I'm not mentioning companies, but other than that, I never talk about my company.
Okay.
Yeah. He leaves that secluded, which is fine. Yeah.
Which hey, let me dovetail on what we just talked about and say, what was probably the single best takeaway, John, that you pulled out of your training experience when you learned to drive truck?
That the information's out there. You just have to find it between YouTube and other truckers that know what they're talking about. Probably on kind of a stupid, selfish moment, but backing was always an issue for me when I first started, and I used to literally practice on my own, off the clock or in creeper mode, if you know what I mean. When I started nailing it one after another, that was a pretty proud moment for me. So
that's a good thing. But
I taught myself all of it. I was never really taught how to do that. So
yeah.
So John, is that why you do mostly drop and hook? Gotcha. I told you I'd get you back, John.
Okay. Now that
we've had that, now that we've had my back.
Now that we've had that moment, let me turn the shades on you there, Frank.
Oh no!
Hang on, I got something to say.
What?
If we're going to turn shades on Frank, I got something to say. He's constantly bragging about the size of his Facebook group. Well, I've always been nice and let him think that he's such a big Facebook group. But let's be honest here.
My wife in the background is hearing this, and you know what her response is?
What?
Hey, boys.
Well, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Yes, I have 105,000 on my YouTube, but I also have 22,000 on my Facebook. Technically, a little bit more than Frank.
Okay.
But that's okay.
All right.
Okay. I mean, I'll help him along. He'll get there eventually.
I see. All right.
Let me offer you a flag here, Frank. What was your best takeaway from your training experience?
Well, it depends on which training time I actually done. I mean, the best time I had with this last time I went out and did training with a trainer was whenever we made our trip up to Connecticut to bring a load of windows out of Missouri. And him and I had to park there on the street because there was nowhere else to park. And it was like downtown. I can't remember exactly where, but it was downtown.
Right.
And there was this nice little cafe that this old lady, she did not want to give it up. And it's kind of one of them, like you've seen in the movie Superman. I mean, it's one of them kind. And I went in there and he went in there and we ordered some coffee and a few things to eat and stuff. And we actually had a good time. We got talking about things and stuff more. And then another thing that was really cool about it is they had this really neat statue out in the middle of the split. It looked just like a real person, 2 real persons sitting there with a real dog. It was made out of bronze. and I have pictures of that I'll share with you. But anyhow, that was one of the best moments, I'd have to say. Now, whenever I first began trucking back in 2000, 2000, I guess it was, or 2001, I can't remember, but it's been too long ago. Because I was just a greenhorn in 21, so it must have been around 2000. Well, the trainer that I had there, him and I didn't hit it off right away because he never had any children. He was a single man, and so he didn't quite understand, my life.
Right.
Well, it was me and him and another trainee that was all cooped up in there. That's how they used to do it back then, especially whenever we ran paper log.
Right.
Anyhow, me and him actually butted heads over the factor of family issues, and I just flat ass, just told him straight up, hey, I'm not going to put up with this. This is how it is. This is the way my family is, and you've never had any children. You don't understand it. You don't understand children. And I mean, we got into a big old voice knockout, drag out. Basically, it wasn't no fist, but it was voice.
Right.
And I walked off because we were getting a truck washed, and I walked off and I left for a while, and I was getting ready to, get me a bus ticket and head back. And he came out there shortly after, and he apologized to me, and he said, "Look, I'm sorry, Frank." He said, "I'm gonna tell you what." He said, "Yes, I don't have any children, never have." He said, "But I wanted to experience that." And he said, "I'll be honest with you." He said, "You're the closest thing to a son that I have ever met."
Yes.
And after that, that's the one that gave me. He gave me my handle. My handle originally,
right,
that he came up with was Tubby Wubby.
Oh, I don't know.
I looked at him.
Publicly admit that, but okay.
Well, I'm just telling you, that's exactly what it came out to be. I looked at him and I said, "All right, I'll stick with the Tubby. That fits me perfect. But the Wubby stuff, gotta go. We ain't doing that." He said, "All right, you win." But after that, though, him and I had the best relationship ever. Of course, he's an old man. Hell, he was pushing in his 70s in. Chances are he may not even be around anymore because he lived out in California with his sister-in-law and all them. But wherever he's at, God bless him. I mean, him and I hit it off later and became good friends.
Yep. My best takeaway from all of my training, and I've had, pretty much the same experiences you folks had. My best takeaway from all of my training, I think, could be best summed up from a video I uploaded to Trucking City yesterday. And that is simply this. Every day across the country, we have so many of us guys out here doing a very difficult job. Everybody's crunched by time. Everybody's fighting that clock. Everybody's got to get somewhere. If everybody stops for just 2 seconds and thinks before they act, this entire industry would be a great and different place to be in.
I agree with you.
I do think more focus has to be given to, let's not get there yesterday. Let's just get there safely. And there in part lies to the last question I'm going to cover on this entire live. And that is, how can we get more people involved in training that actually are willing to do it the right way? Not only training, but mentoring as well. Because I honestly feel like in this business, we have a shortage in that department. We really do. Because, I mean, we just covered the whole basics right here. You and I, Frank, we've had, a vastly different experience in trucking. Different experience, not only in trucking, but in training as well. I mean, because you said you had Class A, Class B. You've been on the job a hell of a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what experiences you've had in numbers of different jobs, but each one of them have had an orientation or a training, process you have to go through.
That's right.
So, I mean, it can really be a turnoff to people, but the bottom line is, as we put people out here, you want to have people that are willing to do the right thing, that are willing to show, that are willing to train, not people just doing it because it has to be done, because that's half the problem. You got people out here doing this, and half the time either A, they don't speak good enough English, or they don't speak, relate well to people, and I mean, that's a huge problem. If you don't want to train, don't train, and
That's
if
right.
obviously that I think that goes without saying. I mean, thankfully, it seems like the three of us were blessed with people that at least had the upstairs to do that, and we're willing to take the time to show us the right way to do things.
That's right.
So, anyway, thoughts, suggestions. What do you think we can do industry wide to get more people willing to do that? Do you think we're paid enough? Maybe more pay, better circumstances, up the training standards? I don't know. What do you, John?
This is going to be extremely ironic. But I think if less people were trying to make YouTube channels teaching people and more people were actually teaching people, that would be a good beginning. But yes, I would think up to standards 100%.
So you think a lot of people are too many people are on YouTube? I'm kind of interested in that line of thinking. Is that what you think?
No, what I'm saying is I don't want to list channels because I'm not that guy, but
No,
there
don't.
there are guys out there that have been driving less than a year and they have YouTube channels and they're actually pretty successful YouTube channels and they're training.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, they should still be in training. No offense to them.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense at all. They obviously have some chops on YouTube, but I think learning how to do your job and your craft should be your first priority. I mean, I've had my channel 4 years, and when I became an owner operator, my wife got sick at the same time, and I took a year off of YouTube because priorities in life are more important than YouTube.
That's right.
So my wife and my job.
Yeah, my channel,
more important.
All three of my channels, which by the way are linked in the description of my channel. All three of my channels, I don't claim to know all of it. I don't claim to know anything. All I do with all three of my channels is share my experience. And I think that at the very least is what I can do. I don't consider myself qualified to train. All right. Because I mean, I've been on a million miles. I've been, almost 12, 13 years now. So, but even that being said, I still would not feel right putting my name behind a training course at all. And I won't do that. So from where you're coming from, John, I totally understand it and respect that opinion. I think it's a very valid one. Yeah. What about you, Frank? What do you think? Oh,
I mean, I kind of agree with John on that. I mean, people with coming out here and trying to do training and they only got a year experience. I mean, they're still, you might as well say they're still a baby to the trucking industry, I mean, they've got a lot to learn. And I've got over 23 years, yes, but I still learn something new every day when I'm out there. I guarantee I will. Either I'll pick it up from another driver that's been out longer than me, or I'll see something that another driver that's got a few years behind their belt, like yourself and John, that's got less than me, but you don't got enough. I mean, you're constantly learning. And if you don't constantly learn, you need to just get out from behind that wheel and stay away from it. Just like with life, you're constantly learning something new.
It's all about maturity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we're up here every week. We're up here every week at 11 o'clock. And unless we got another item or something we want to throw in for coverages, I just wanted to take this time and opportunity to plug y'all's groups and channels once again. We got Driving with John down below. He's got a great and entertaining YouTube channel. Every day practically gives everybody an entertaining outlook on the trucking industry. We got Frank up above there. He's got a great Facebook group called Grumpy Old Truckers. He's working hard at trying to get his YouTube up together, and I'm certainly behind him. I'm going to give him every bit of help I can, and so will John, I know. Any chance you get, come by Truckin' City Media, leave a like, become a subscriber, check us out every week at 11 o'clock. We are here. We are giving you the news. We are giving you trucking with attitude. I'm going to tell you something. Running a YouTube channel is not easy. Trying to do a live show is even more interesting.
You got that.
but it's an interesting part to play, and I certainly don't mind doing it. Well, you may say what you like.
Truckers, and you're grumpy old truckers, and you're learning something new every day, so I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Hey,
Truckers are people too.
Yeah, good place to leave it. You know what? Truckers, we have a lot going on in life. And trying to figure out the echo here. I'm trying to end this on a smooth note. Well, I didn't want him to leave, but he's gone anyway. Hang out, Frank. I'll be with you here in just a minute. We are here every week, rain or shine, 11 o'clock. See us, like us, become subscribed, check us out. You know, one thing's for sure. It's trucks that make the deliveries, but it's the drivers that make the difference. Till next week, guys. God bless. And certainly remember to keep them rolling.